So for our recording, I don't really want to make it because throughout the season, it's been very chronological in like the sense of we start from the beginning. You were born Mlazi, and then what next, and so forth. I really just want to talk more about the music today because I'm a big fan. So I just want to talk about that a lot more, if it makes sense.
That's perfectly fine.
Okay. And also, I'm not going to introduce you because you're Spha Mdlalose.
I don't know. Like, I mean, it's weird to introduce myself. So,
No, I don't think
I don't
you are
know.
even in a position where you do need to introduce yourself. You are you.
Oh, I feel like I do. I
Really?
definitely feel yeah. I mean, look, I think for me, like, I only have one album out, and like, I think, yeah, I definitely think that there's still some work to do. And I think like it's been amazing to see the response from the album. And I'm always honestly like very surprised when people even know my work. Honestly,
Yeah.
not even from like a weird place. Honestly, just because, like I'm an independent artist in a niche genre,
Yeah.
with no like backing or like no, like no record label behind me. So it's honestly for me always just a shock when I'm like, oh, okay, dope. But yeah, I mean, I think there's still some work to do, and I still think for me,
But
there's still so
I,
much I want to see from an artistic perspective.
I'd like to think it's a case of if you know, you know.
This is also the thing. Yeah, if you know, you know. You know what I'm saying?
If you
If
know,
you
you
don't
know.
know, then you're gonna find out. You know what I'm saying?
If you know it's Spha Mdlalose, then it's Spha Mdlalose.
Yeah, yeah.
So let's start there actually. Fans. So you're saying you find that do you find that it's a jazz thing? Because you do find artists in other genres who they release their debut album and they are this mega stars. Do you think it's just a, a jazz thing?
No, I think it's like I think it's more of an independent artist thing. So
Mm,
I think like you can definitely be an Afro soul artist and people won't know that much about you just because you don't have the machinery around you. Just how the industry works is that you need like a lot of capital to push an artist. You need a lot of capital to get an artist on radio play. You need generally a lot of capital to create visibility around yourself. Particularly, I think because the industry is so saturated, like there's just so many artists releasing music all the time. So you're competing with everyone. I don't, like I don't think of myself as someone who's just, I don't even like the word competing, but if we must
yeah.
use the word competing, I don't think of myself as competing with just like jazz musicians. I'm like thinking holistically,
Mm,
Um, and that's also, I think, because of the way that I think about my music. I don't think that my music is necessarily like for jazz listeners or for jazz ears, but I guess that's another part of the topic we can get into.
yeah.
So yeah, so I don't necessarily think it's for jazz. I think it's just for everybody, but I think it's worse for jazz. Immediately people hear that you do jazz music, they're a little bit closed off. They're not
Yeah.
interested in hearing what you do because there are so many ideas of what the music is, and people generally find or generally are not open-minded to it.
And just to go back to the competing that you speak of, is this in terms of capturing an audience?
Yeah, I say yeah, definitely capturing an audience and like just being viewed as mainstream enough to work frequently in the industry. So be booked for festivals that are not just atypical jazz festivals.
Mm.
Yeah, just to be able to work, to be able to have a career for yourself in SA.
I think generally the perception, more specifically with young people around the genre of jazz, it's a bit tricky. And I often don't understand, more especially when you look at the current jazz world and the artists we have. We have really young artists with
Mm.
really amazing projects. So I don't understand where the audience is not meeting the artists. I would understand if we're saying our jazz spaces are populated with like really old people, but that's not the case.
It's 100% not the case. And I think like it's interesting because it's reflected in the audience, but it's also reflected in the musicians.
Mm,
So, but I think the problem is that sometimes there's a disconnect between those who have the power to hold these events.
yeah.
And sometimes they don't necessarily understand the genre. They don't understand the trends that are in that genre.
Mm,
So for them, it's like, oh, jazz, okay, old men drinking whiskey.
yeah.
Like they have like a very sort of stereotypical idea of what the music sounds like and who will gravitate towards the music. Even though like time and time again, like that notion is so incorrect. It's so wrong. There's so many artists, like I mean Mandisi, for instance, who are using it as an example so much because his audience is his age predominantly, and he's young, and he's playing jazz music and people just love it and it resonates with them so deeply. So yeah.
It's interesting you speak of Mandisi. I actually first discovered your project through a Mandisi post. I think he had put it up on his stories or so.
Oh, dope.
That's when I first discovered your project, and I've been in love with it ever since.
Big love. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
So, speaking of the project, my first question is, don't you think you left it out a bit too late? I mean, 2019 was way too late.
No, guys, you know what, Neil? I'm a firm believer in God's timing.
Yeah.
And honestly, at that time, it just felt like the right time. There were so many things that were happening personally. And I also think people, okay, wait, I need to put a sort of like a caveat. So I would have wanted to put the music out earlier and sooner, but there were actually quite a few things that happened behind the scenes, that made it a bit difficult for me to do so. And so at some point when you are, and I think this speaks for a lot of artists, when you are ready to release a work, you just are like, okay, it's gonna come out when it comes out, because you have so many plans, so many ideas. But there's one variable, particularly as an artist, capital. You want to put out a project that you are proud of, something that you can stand behind, something that you think is like of a high standard, something that you think is like a good representative of who you are. And you don't want to rush that, And so for me, being able to do the album the way that I wanted to do it, with the songs that were included on the album, with the artists that were included on the album, was incredibly important to me. And so I feel like actually 2019, as much as it may seem late, I feel like it was right on time for me personally. I also believe in it's nice when there's a demand.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
It's
like it's
when we've
nice.
waited long enough.
Yeah, it's nice. Doesn't food taste better like if you're really hungry,
Yeah.
So it was nice that there was a demand. I appreciated that. And I think, it came out when it should have come out.
Just before we even get even deep into the project, just briefly describe to me how difficult it can get, not only composing and recording the album, but also having to roll it out as an independent artist by yourself.
So I was so stressed, honestly, because you project manage the project, you're the artist on the project, you're funding the project, and even like what you say, roll out, like nothing, nothing that honestly, nothing that I did on that album was strategic, just because you're in a rush to put it out. Rolling out takes like months of like sort of strategizing, and usually people outsource people. And at the time I didn't have much money, and it was literally like, girl, you have to just put it out or it's never going to come out. So I wish, and I think with the second album I'll definitely be more conscious of like how it's like little teasers, all these cute things that people do now. Like a rollout strategy and the whole thing, definitely, because hindsight is a big teacher. But yeah, like I think the challenges are many, and I think also I was working alone, and that was also a big learning curve. I'm not always good at asking for help. Red flag. So so I had to also just be like, go, can't do it like this next time. But yeah, like so it gets a bit crazy. And actually by the time that the launch came, I was so exhausted. I didn't really enjoy it much, just because there was so much happening. I was responsible for so much, so yeah, like I think those are the perils of being an independent artist, literally like the independence of it all. And I think also, for me, it's also a personal sort of lesson in the sense that there is help, and next time I will be sure to have a support structure.
I'm sure you will. But also I think on the plus side, we're also in a time where the concept of streams kind of lessens the stress, because now you don't have to be printing out physical copies and whatever. Or is that also stressful in itself, the streaming?
The streaming. So I have like a, yeah, like I have a love-hate relate, not even love actually. I have I don't like the streaming model because I'm not like, I think for me it doesn't benefit musicians
Yeah.
in the sense that you're making such a small amount of money from the music that you're putting out.
True.
And at least with CDs you could sort of even just break even, you know. You're getting like 150, 200 rand in your hand. And if you know that you're doing a gig, you can be lucky and sell like what, maybe 50 albums, you know, and that's money straight into your bank account or whatever.
Yeah.
But with streaming, like, it just doesn't add up. It doesn't make any sense to me. And so, yeah, I don't like the model. I don't think, and I think also contextually, like for South African musicians who have just sort of recovered from COVID and like and are facing difficulties of not being able to perform, the closure of so many live venues, you know, like I just don't know if streaming works for us here, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, like obviously the convenience of being able to put your music on whatever, iTunes or whatever, great, I get that. But my question is at what cost,
The
you know?
profitability of it, yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually very contrary because the last guest I spoke to is an American artist, and for him, he saw the benefit in that the streaming allows him to be able to reach audiences in other countries that he possibly wouldn't have been able to reach because streams are basically a focal point, you know.
Yeah. And I think that's also the thing, like you can't, it's not all bad. Like, so obviously, like I think for me, I think of streaming as an exposure tool. Like, you know, like a couple of months ago, I got a email from a show in America wanting to use one of the songs on the album and stuff. And like they never would have even known who I was, right? And that's all good and well, but it's like, if you're making like 300 rand off an album that cost you like close to 100,000 rand to make, I don't know, man, you know, like something seems a bit off for me. And I think it's even worse because it's like all your other alternatives of making money, all your other revenue making streams are so limited too. So like obviously live performance is like, you know, it's on the up, but it's not like where it should be.
Yeah.
You know, like then what do you turn to? How else are you making a living, you know? And I just, yeah, I don't know if streaming is it. And you know, like there's really not much you can do because digitization is the way forward. You know, they say it's, you know, like there's nothing we can do. We can't fight what's happening. But I just think, I don't know. I have lots of questions.
I think you should still consider getting CDs and vinyls out. I know there's a very huge market for such. On the live performance one, you also touch on that, and I think it's also important to mention that we don't have enough promoters and spaces for a jazz artist in the country. We don't have Lianos and hidden spaces at around every corner, and it's also a factor in the profitability of it.
100%. I think, look, I mean, lots of studies have been done, and live performance is generally the biggest earner for musicians across the board. But I think that's also just because all the other options are so slim. It's sad for me. I mean, even now that you're saying in Polokwane there's nothing happening. That in a country that's so musically rich, like from all the provinces. So I'm not only just talking about Johannesburg, but all over, that there are no places to showcase our artists and to showcase the you know, the music that they make. And I don't know, I think maybe people are, I don't know, I think maybe places used to exist and then it was a profitability thing. But maybe also, you know, audiences are, you know, like everybody's a little bit
but I think it goes much bigger because then you then question, who are those audiences? How is our economy looking? Are people making enough income in their households to be able to pay for the shows?
This is the thing. And I think in a lot of households, particularly Black households, you know, like it's not in our we don't think of music or going to see music as a necessity. It's definitely a luxury. And so when everybody is struggling to make ends meet and youth unemployment is where it's at,
Yeah.
Who's going to come to these shows? How are
Yeah,
you
that's
pricing
true.
the shows to make it make sense for musicians to even come and play?
Yeah.
Like there's so many factors, there's so many variables. A lot of venues now I see, and this is also like my complaint,
Mm.
especially in Joburg, there's a new trend of like all the restaurants have live music, but they
Yes.
don't necessarily have like the infrastructure, so they don't have sound systems. Then you have to
Mm.
pay for the sound to rent the sound, but that takes away
Mm.
from your like
That
it
is
just,
on you. Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? And it's like
Mm.
already you are taking a risk by putting on a gig there in the first place. What if no one shows up? Like it's just so many factors. And I think it's also difficult because there's not much support from the Department of Arts and Culture, so it's
Yeah.
tricky.
It's a lot. I think
It's tricky.
let's move into the album because honestly, the problems are a lot. It's a slippery slope.
Yeah, yeah.
So my Zulu is not up there, but I'll try.
Do
Indle,
your best.
Indlel'eyekhaya,
Yeah.
meaning what?
It means the way home.
The way home. That's what I assume.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly
So
what it means.
how do we come up with this name for an album?
So I am the worst person at coming up for names. As like even some of the songs on the album, I left it to like the 11th hour because I'm like, what am I gonna call this thing?
Yeah.
But I think for this particular name, it was inspired by one of the songs on the album called Indlela,
Mm.
which is a recording that I did, originally a recording that I did with a pianist by the name of Andreas Loven, who's from Norway. I say
No way.
Norwegian, from Norway. And I was joking with him. I'm like, oh, you're from Norwegian. No, there's no such a place. It's Norway. So he's from Norway, and he was doing an exchange. UCC used to do a lot of exchanges with Norwegian musicians, and he was down in Cape Town, and
Mm.
he fell so in love with the place, and he was like, so much about this, it doesn't make sense, but so much about South Africa feels like home.
Mm.
So I wrote that lyric inspired by that conversation and what he said. And I think in hindsight, when I named the album, I was thinking about how I wanted it to feel. And I think of home, and I think too, the fact that the album was sharing so much of myself. There's
Yeah.
music about my parents, there's music, so it was sort of like inviting you into my home, sort of metaphorically, yeah.
Mm.
Um, and sort of giving you a taste of what that would sound and feel like, and what the themes of the conversations would be like in my home. And so, yeah, it was just a play on that, play on the idea of home, of community, I guess, of warmth. And I think that's what I wanted the music to translate.
And I mean, you've been a performing artist for a long time, but how does it then feel going into a recording booth and wanting to transition into a recording artist? Is there a massive difference in that? And do you see the positive in it when you go in it, or are you as scared as I could imagine you would be?
I think the recording wasn't so scary. I think the releasing was probably the scariest part.
Yeah.
Because it's like now you've recorded and it's like, okay, cool, yay. And then someone's like, okay, but you have to sell this, right?
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
It's like, what do you mean? So I think that was definitely the scariest part. Recording is not my favorite thing.
Mm.
Because like you hear what you sound like.
Yeah, you
And
get
it's
to,
like,
yeah.
sometimes you don't sound so good. Like, sometimes you don't sound so good.
Retake.
Like, hello, what do you mean? Is that me? That can't be me.
Yeah.
It's like incredibly, you're being super vulnerable, like, and so recording is not my favorite thing. But
Mm.
I'm learning to use it as a space of exploration.
Yeah.
And really sort of finding out like the nuts and bolts of my voice, as opposed to seeing it as this place where I could fail.
And take me a bit into the conceptualizing of the album. How does that go? Do you find yourself in a space where you say, I've written several amounts of songs and I'd like to now put them into an album? Or do you say, I have this many compositions? How does that go?
So yeah, I think an album is inevitable.
Yeah.
It was always the goal at that time of my life, to release a body of work. It was always something I was sort of working towards, sometimes indirectly, sometimes directly. And only when I had like 4 or 5 compositions that I felt very passionate about, that I think to myself, okay, we're getting there. Now let's add and start thinking about a rounded body of work. Because I think it's one thing to just have 4 or 5 songs floating around, but it's another thing when you start thinking, how does this sound together? Does this make sense? You know, if I put this as the first song, what would be the second song? You know, so now it starts to become a puzzle that you are piecing together. And that happened over time, and I think it happened organically. I had been writing, albeit slowly, but I think at the back of my mind, an album was always sort of the objective.
And it's important when you mention the order, the order of the songs. The song needs to help transition the next one and this one and so forth. I don't think, well, I can't say, but there are many projects I've listened to and felt, I don't think this artist saw this as being one massive puzzle.
Yeah, I think there's definitely like not a power, but yeah, like I think the way you put things together can make such a difference. And I think of an album as a journey, is like a destination. So what's the first song? Okay. And I think about it a lot also in the way of performing live. You always think like, what do you want the audience to experience? What do you want them to go home feeling like? Do you want them to sing back? When would that make the most sense? You know, like, so I'm always sort of thinking as a band leader. So that's the part that I always, because you're curating an experience.
True.
And so, yeah, so I was very sort of adamant about that. And interestingly enough, because I'm so happy with the way that it was put together, it's difficult to break away from it even when we do live shows. It's almost like I want to keep it exactly the same, because I'm just like, it doesn't make sense to me in any other way. It doesn't make sense. Like, it's like, I don't know if I could do that song after, like, you know. So I don't know. So it's like, it's good and bad, I think.
So do you think in this album you've kind of found a formula on how to make an album going forward? I say this because you listen to Mandisi, for example, again. You listen to both albums, you can see the similarities in terms of the structure of the album and the placement of certain songs on the track list. So do you think you've found that for yourself in your debut album?
With like formula scare me. So I definitely think more than anything, I found a sound. That I like. There's like something sonically that happened with that album that I appreciate. And I think like the response has also been the same. Like someone said to me, I really appreciated, he's like, he said, you've got a sound. And a lot of artists, sometimes when they've got a sound, they are nervous that it's not gonna like be for everybody, so they change it to what's popular. He was like, whatever you do, stick with your sound. Like that thing you have, stay with that thing. And I think so. I definitely think there's a sound. There's like people say a vibe. And it's by my doing, but maybe it was just the songs. Maybe it was the keys of the songs. But so there's definitely like a sonic thing there. Which I quite appreciate. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the second album is going to be. I do think that human nature is to do what you know. So there will be sounds that are similar to the first album. But I also don't want to trap myself. I don't want to. I mean, I'm not going to be doing rock, but but like, I think. Yeah, I think the sound will be the sound.
And who do you work with on the album? Do you work with the same bandmates throughout the album?
Yeah, so the album I worked with people that I've been working with for a while, and people who actually really helped shape the music, people who I introduced the songs to first when they were like nothing, when they were just ideas. And I think there's great comfort in that because they know the music, and in a lot of ways too, they have contributed to the music. They've contributed to what it sounds like now. And so those are the people that I worked with. Some of them I still work with, some of them I don't work with anymore. I just think just because our schedules don't allow it. But yeah, like the music has also, I guess, grown in the since 2019. It doesn't exactly sound the same. Yeah, which I'm not angry about. I think there's a growth and there's a reinterpretation. If you're working with different musicians too, they'll interpret certain songs in a way that maybe the person who recorded it didn't record it that way. And yeah, so you know, we keep
And
elevating.
how does the pitching of a project go as a vocalist? Because I can imagine if you're a composer or an instrument player, you kind of have some sort of bass line for the project, if I can call it that. So as a vocalist, do you now go to the guys or the ladies and say, these are the lyrics to songs that I have, or are you also a composer in your own right?
I'm a composer, cha. Yeah, I mean, I wear that hat like with much trepidation, but like, I definitely wrote like all the original melodies on that album.
Okay.
Obviously songs like Celiana existed before.
Yeah.
Thanks to Victor Ndoni, and How I Win was actually a contribution by Ndumiso Madana, so I didn't write anything on that. But all the other songs were my original compositions with the help of instrumentalists who assisted with the harmonies, so who helped with the chords. But yeah, like I take big credit for that. And I think particularly as a vocalist as well, I think there's this sort of like, I don't know, I think like if you're a vocalist first, people think that you can't really do anything else.
True.
And that always kind of annoys me because I'm like, nah. You know, we write. And I think the next stage, and I really, really want to, for the next album, be able to claim like all the credit, like so being able to write all the chords for the songs as well as the melodies, you know, so I can feel a little bit more like, okay, I did that, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so what would happen generally is I would have the idea for the melody, so the whole melody, A and B, and then usually also horn lines. And then I'd go to either Tim Gorsi or Tandy, who are people I co-write with. And I'd be like, listen, this is the idea that I have. And then we'd like sort of flesh it out. I'd write the lyric. And that was that.
Who plays the guitar on Song to My Love?
It's Urban Van Halen. Urban Van Halen. This is a black man, by the way. Wow. Yeah, he also plays on Lefati. So he plays on Lefati as well. But just incredible guitarist. He is like very underrated, but just like one of the greatest guys, and also incredibly professional. Yeah, Urban Van Halen. He's actually, if you look on a lot of the credits, he's been a session musician for some really good albums.
His guitar is definitely a standout. But as an intro song, I felt Song to My Love is quite perfect. You know, the wind instruments. Actually, I felt that it's a song that highlighted possibly every piece of instrumentation that was used, if I can say that. It was very theatrical and perfect intro to an album.
Drama, baby. We're here for the drama. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. I think it was like, for me, it felt like if you were someone who wasn't sure about the album, you weren't sure if the jazz listener, you'd be like, hey, what's in Muslim done? And then put it on and be like, okay, she cool, you know. It's not, I mean, I think a lot of commercial, and not commercial like in a mapiano way, but commercial enough to be heard on during the week, not only for Sunday.
It's literally starting on a high. It's starting the project on a high.
100%. That was definitely on purpose.
And then you go into D103. Firstly, the name. What is that about? Is that a reference to anything?
It's a reference to actually my maternal grandparents' address. So I grew up in Mdlalose, as you had said, and if you know anything about Mdlalose, it's like the way that the sections are like named. They're named after the alphabet, which is interesting because like sometimes A is next to Gazette, but anyway, that's another thing. So my grandparents lived in a section called Gwadi, or they still do, well, my grand does, lived at D103, and that was actually the last song on the album that was named, and I was kind of like, the song is weird, there are no words, like no one's gonna really get it, which is funny because that's actually the song that people request like pretty much the most. But there's like the song was no words that like I wasn't sure.
They don't want to hear you.
Well, I mean, by virtue of it being my song, they hear me, but I'm not saying anything. So I mean, it just also shows you how we can think we can predict what people want.
True.
And that's a lesson I keep like learning. Like, you don't know what people want. So yeah, so the song has like a little bit of like a church gospel-esque thing about it. And my grandfather was like a man of God, if there was ever a man of God. And when I was getting close to releasing the album, he passed away. And so I guess in a lot of ways, it's dedication, I guess, to him and just his role in my life. So yeah, so that's the reference to D103.
And then you move from D103 to Seliana, which you've already mentioned was a re-rendition of someone else's song.
Yeah.
How difficult is it? Because obviously you now already have references for the song you're about to sing. How difficult is it to allow yourself to be influenced by the versions that have been released before, but not fully embrace someone else's version of the song?
I think what helped with this particular song is that it was rearranged. So Nikki Shaya, the vocalist and composer, had this beautiful arrangement of the song, and I was like, oh man, I'm so obsessed with the song. Please, can I record it? And so it was helpful in the sense that, you know, some of the chords were not the same. There was just so many beautiful things that she added to the composition that already made it different to anything I'd heard already. And so
Yeah,
I wasn't even thinking of the other references. I think for me, it was about doing it in the best way that I possibly could. Because if you're doing something of someone who's passed, you're adding to a legacy, you know? And so for me, it was a big responsibility to be able to really do something of a high quality.
And I like that you say that, because recently I was listening to a Sibongile Khumalo version of the song, and it sounded much faster and much more paced, and yours seemed a lot more, I don't know if deliberate is a way of describing music. Your version sounded a lot more deliberate and a lot more calm.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it was all really dictated by the arrangement and what Nikki had put on paper. But it's just a beautiful song. I mean, I think, and it's interesting because like a lot of radio stations do that thing, you know, that thing where they're like, which version do you like the most?
Yeah. And
I'm like, don't put me next to Mama Sibongile. Don't do that. Don't do that. But I guess it's what's gonna happen, right? It's what's gonna happen when you do a song of someone else's. But at the same breath, I also think it's so important for archiving sake, for reference sake. I want like kids who are 20, you know, when I'm gone, to say, oh, there's this version of Seliana and there's another version of Seliana, just because I don't think that there's enough of that for our music in particular.
And we speak of Mama Sibongile. How special was she as a person, but also as a reference? I had an episode with Bokang Ramatlapeng, and we're speaking of references a lot. How important it is to have people who come before you and do something that acts as a reference for you coming up, you know. So just how important was it, or how important was it to have people such as herself as references of people who came before us?
I think it's everything. I think it's everything and more. And I have a very I have a fond memory of Mama Sibongile. I met her very randomly. So there's going to be lots of stories on this episode. So basically, she was doing a tour. There was a tour that she was doing. It was called I don't remember, but it was basically chronicling her life and like all this really cool stuff. And the tour was happening in Joburg. And at the time, I was in Cape Town. So I'm very, very forward. I emailed them and I'm like, hey guys, they were holding auditions for the tour for singers and different people.
Yeah.
So Mina Tataraha email her manager. I'm like, hi, this is who I am. I heard about the tour. I'd really like to audition. Would you guys be keen to do a Skype audition? And the manager's like, we haven't considered that, but what are you doing tomorrow? And I'm like, no, I'm not doing anything tomorrow. I'm just going to work. At the time I was working at a mall called Cavendish Center as a, you know, those information girl, people who direct you to the different shops.
Yes.
Anyway, so she's like, okay,
wow,
cool.
I can imagine you.
Yeah, lived many lives. So anyway, she's the manager's like, she's actually in Cape Town tomorrow, and she'd like to have breakfast with you. So if you are free between 8 and 9, like, you know, we can do what I do and you can audition in person. So obviously I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Don't sleep. Like insane. And then at the time I didn't have a driver's license. So like a loser, my dad drops me off at this guest house where she's staying. And she's just like so cool. Like she
Yeah.
comes down for breakfast, relaxed, chilled. I think we even sat outside. She's like, "Would you like anything to eat?" And I'm like, "No, I'm fine." We're just chatting, laughing. She wants to know who I am. She's like, you know, I think she was struck by the fact that I would even email to ask if I could Skype audition, you know. So just intrigued, like, where are you from?
Yeah.
Also, your name is,
What's your
what are you
story?
doing in Cape Town? Yeah, just like
Mm.
chatting, like I'm chatting to a friend. Then at the end, at like I think at 5 to 9, like my dad's on his way to come pick me up. She's like, "Hey, oh, cool, I guess, so at least we know that you've got a voice." So then I don't even know what I said. I think I just sang some like song, some hymn or something. Then she
Yeah.
joins me and she's like, "Okay, cool, I'll see you in Joburg."
Wow.
Guys. So I get in the car, tell my dad everything. Obviously now I have to go to work and like, you know, act professional.
Yeah.
But that's what happened. And then
Wow.
flew to Joburg for rehearsals for the tour, stayed at my uncle's house, and we traveled. I think we did a show in Cape Town, we did a show in Joburg. Then I think after that, she invited me to sing backings for her for some other gigs, so like more private gigs. But just, I think what people didn't know about her is that she was very, very silly, like very funny, loved to laugh. I'm not the greatest dancer, and that's one of the things she would always laugh at if we were choreographing something. I'm always the stiff girl, you know. And she would just like can herself until like tears came out of her eyes and just laughing at me.
Yeah.
But very much like a mother, but also very like you didn't. But if she didn't like something, she would address it right away.
Yeah.
And just not a no nonsense, you know, like no nonsense. Very much like a mother, you know, like very much nurturing and loving. But if you cross the line, you will be put in line, you know. And so I'm so fortunate that I got to experience that. And I think in a lot of ways, it was very much a pinch me moment, because it's like, here's this woman who've been hearing about, here's this woman that whose music you've been exposed to, you know, predominantly like a lot of your music, a lot of your career and your life. And now you just have access to her, you know? And so I can't help but like share those memories, I think, because she was more than I think an artist for a lot of people too. Very, very, very much like a mother. I remember she saw me after I got married and she's like, "I was sang you know, like, you know, like just guys. Yeah, so I agree with Bokang in so many ways. You know, I think we've been lucky to have those giants walk among us and be open to teaching us. Because sometimes you have someone that you've loved for a very long time and they're not open, they're not keen to teach the younger generation, you know? But she was very different.
And that is very beautiful. That is beautiful. And then we move on to When I Think of You, which I sing at random moments of my day. Both versions, I mean the part 1 and the part 2. Question is, who are you thinking about on both songs? Because you listen to it and there are many references made.
Yeah, so it's definitely an ode to my parents. I think it's difficult to be a parent to a child that's a dreamer. In a world that wants like structure, you know, like you want results, you want school and like study industrial engineering and then, you know, like leave with a degree and then, you know, go make money and buy venues in Polokwane. But like when you are a parent who has a child that has like a gift, musical gift or otherwise, particularly a Black parent, it's difficult. It can be difficult to nurture that because you don't know what the result of it will be. And so for me, I'm grateful to my parents for investing and believing. I mean, my parents still come to my shows and stuff, and it's like so cute. And really like, because I think in a lot of ways it's like helping me answer the call. Because if they had said like, no, like we're not going to fund this dream of yours, I don't know what my life would be like. I don't know if it would be this way. So the fact that their support and their sacrifice has led me to this place. So I think When I Think of You is about that, you know, them really never asking me to down my dreams. And yeah, that's it.
It's really beautiful. I mean, at some point it sounds like an ode to your son. At some point it sounds like to your
Oh yeah, I think that
parents.
I think that that little thing, the
Yeah, the
mama thing is
little
it's
when the
misleading.
song
Yeah,
starts.
yeah,
At
it's
some point
misleading.
it sounds like some religious ode. Sometimes it sounds like you're speaking to a romantic partner. It's honestly the most beautiful part of the album for me.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I
Um,
think maybe in a lot of ways it work. I mean, it's maybe referencing me as a parent as well. Maybe
yeah.
that is the thing, like responsibility to do the same for my son, depending on whatever it is that he wants to pursue.
I'm sure you're doing a great job as a mom. And then I'm going to speak of Noah's Ark and come back to me simultaneously. Just
Okay, yeah.
I wanna touch on the lack of collaborations or vocal collaborations in jazz spaces. I find it hard to make sense of.
It's interesting. I've never thought of that. Um, and it's interesting in the sense that I think jazz is very collaborative.
Yes,
As
it's
a
literally
music form. Yeah,
yeah.
but there's not a lot of
There's not a lot of
there's
vocal.
there's not a lot of like duets. I don't think there's a lot of duets generally.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, actually, that's a good point. There's not a lot of I'm just
And honestly, if you think of some of the vocal talents we have in jazz spaces, we would have amazing, amazing songs being made from that.
that's so interesting. Yeah, I've never actually thought of that. I've never even thought of that in that way. Because I do know that
Yeah,
I mean, like I've sang a lot of backing vocals for jazz artists, but not
yeah, not
necessarily like a collaboration, you know, where we're both on equal footing. And
yeah.
I wonder why that is. I think maybe jazz musicians or jazz vocalists write for themselves. I also think
But
sometimes
it
the
is
song
weird
depends.
in that you do say that jazz is literally a collaborative act. You know, it's very hard
Mm,
to release a jazz. It's practically impossible to release a jazz song without collaboration. So yeah, maybe that's something to look into.
that is something to look into. I'll ponder on that.
So you worked with Manana here, am I right?
Yes, I did. You are
And
very
how
right.
brilliant is he?
He is, man, he is next level. Like I think for me, what I love about Manana is his lyrical writing or his lyric writing. There's so
Yeah.
many times where I hear a song that there's like a quirky lyric or like a funny lyric
Mm,
and I'm like, that's Manana. Like
that's
you
Manana.
don't have
Yeah.
to tell me. Like I know he wrote that. He's like such a genius in that way, the way that he can tell stories and words together. And I think
Yeah.
for me, what I love about it is that it's so vulnerable. Like there's
Yeah.
nothing about what he says that feels fake or contrived or trying to be something that it's not. He's always just honest, man. And I think that like it's so refreshing. It's so refreshing in this
Mm.
world, in this music industry, to have someone like that. But he's like the dopest.
I also think of him as a lyrical genius. There's a song of his titled "All I Seek," and every time I listen to it in my head, I'm going, "This is possibly the greatest written song I've ever had."
Guys,
Is brilliant.
never felt guys,
Oh man,
guys, leave
he's
him.
ridiculous. There's a I think there's a YouTube show somewhere where he was singing with Pepelo as in, and man, ridiculous.
I think I know that. I think I know that show. I think it's
I
that
think
House
it's
of
an
Recording.
yeah, House on the I
Yeah.
think it's the episode that came out after your episode.
Woo! Guys, Mege no manana wafethu. Just leave him.
No man,
He's like
he's brilliant.
just gifted and just anointed and so aware of himself. Like it's for me, it's so inspiring to watch an artist who's like they know themselves. I don't know if that makes sense. Like they're not trying to
Yeah,
pander to
yeah,
who's hot, who's not. Like he is so sure of who he is, and that's just like it's
yeah.
great.
It literally seems like he's content with his artistry.
100%. I mean, who would you not be though? Like, yeah, he's dope.
Uh,
He's dope.
when you released Lefati, firstly, You singing Kasisuthu?
Yes.
Hey, Bacho.
Yes. Hey guys, actually we removed South Africa. No, like I think it wasn't, interestingly enough, it wasn't a strategy. Like I know a lot of people are very strategic. Like obviously everyone's releasing Afrobeat now because Afrobeat is in season and whatever. But this was completely like random. When I was thinking about the melody, like how the melody just was placed, it didn't sound like something that I would naturally sing in Zulu. And it didn't sound like something I would naturally sing in English. I was just like, it doesn't make sense. I can't put into words, but it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And I spoke to a friend of mine who is also a vocalist, and I was like, friend, Kona Lengoma, man, please can you see what you can come up with? These are the things that I'm thinking. What do you think about it? And so she put some words together. I remember also speaking to Nela Mnana, and he put some words together as well, and that's how Lufati came up. And I cannot speak a word of, like, obviously, like, other than just Dumelang, guys. I can't speak. And I know people are also disappointed because like, yo, Kimuzulu. Oh, what is Zulu? And I'm like, no, dog. Sorry.
You're literally giving Malay on that song.
It's definitely not Malay. It's definitely
no, it was really, but then it came out as a single a year before, right?
Yes, I did. I did release it as a single. It was kind of like a cool story. It was my birthday.
Yeah.
Like a gift. He just gave me some money. He was like, please go record a single. He was like, I'm tired.
Wow.
Go and record a single.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Yeah.
So I felt like I was under a little bit of pressure. But I think it was also cool. I mean, I love that song. And it's interesting, like it's grown on me so much. And it's actually always the song that we end the set off with. And it's always just a vibe. Like people love the song. They respond to it very well. I was hoping it would give me some gigs in Bloom, you know what I'm saying? So waiting for some of these promoters to holler at a girl.
Yeah, no, it is a beautiful song. And I guess for artists, they probably, or you probably enjoy it more when you have a more challenging song to sing, if I can call it that.
Like, do you think of it as challenging?
You can't speak a word of Sesotho, Spha Mdlalose.
This is also true, but I'm saying the same thing over and over, friend. That's the trick. That's the trick.
It's not challenging.
Just learn the phrase.
By the time you get into the verse for the second time, you're in.
I'm like, oh, I've just said it, but let me say it again. And actually, that's also the trick, guys. Don't make your life difficult by trying to learn to.
And it sounds beautiful. Like, although it's the same words, but every single time it sounds different.
Thank you so much.
So speaking of Bloemfontein and performing, which of the songs on the album, because I know mostly your shows you probably perform multiple songs, but which specific ones do you prefer to, or not prefer, but best love performing?
Oh, guys,
like making you choose one of your kids.
My favorite child. So I think, like, if I think top three, and I think just from audience response, top three would definitely be guys, Song to My Love.
Okay.
Lefati definitely. And then I think it'll be D103, but it's like a close, like when I think of you, D103 and Celiana are pretty much in the same spot, because I think that I went into the recording process with no expectations. I was just like, I'm just gonna put it out and see what happens. And in a lot of ways, as much as I was frustrated in how it happened, just as I released the album, I think the album has grown in popularity. Like, it's kind of crazy to me that I'm still getting a lot of airplay now, like even in 2022. So in some weird way, maybe things happen for a reason, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, those are the songs that people want to hear.
Have you gotten a chance to perform with Manana yet?
No, we only actually performed together at the launch, but we've never actually performed together. Yeah, we haven't. He's also very busy, you know? He's a busy guy. And I think like also honestly, we don't really perform no's out that much, if at all. And there's no real reason for that. I just think, I always just think, okay, how's the set? What makes the most to do, makes sense to do? And I guess it's always one of the neglected children from the album.
Yeah. And in terms of the performances, because I know there are certain artists who go release recorded albums, but when they perform, they prefer a more acoustic version of their songs. Ideally, how would you best love to perform your songs? Would you love to have all the resources that were at hand when recording, or how do you prefer to?
I would definitely have to have all the instrumentation and the resources that were at hand when I was recording. Like at best, at the moment, I can do like 6-piece, but that's also like if it makes sense financially, a lot of just like clients really are like, yo, but do you really need that many instruments, And for me, like there was a reason that I added all of those, like the horn lines and just everything coming together. It just, for me, is like the best version of how the song should be presented. But I also realize that it's not always possible. So, every now and then where possible, I'll play with like one horn, which is like cool, but it's not like, it's not what you want. You want to present the music as it is recorded. Yeah, and I think too, as a music lover, I always get irritated when artists like play it like you played it on the album, bro. Like
don't give us something we didn't come here for.
Man, nice want to be extra. No, do it like you did on the album. That's the reference I have. That's what I love. That's what I want to hear. That's what I want to experience. So, so I think I would definitely play it like I recorded it.
So I have a final question for you, but before I ask you the final question, do you play any instruments yourself?
So I play a little bit of piano, and not like piano where people like can listen, because it won't sound great. But I can
not a Tandintuli piano.
Oh, Shem, not even. Not even. I mean, if she's a 10, I'm like a 0. Like I'm a -1. No, literally like no. But I think, like as I was saying, one of my goals is to be able to play better. And it's crazy because it was actually a subject that I had in varsity, but I just think I was overwhelmed. I took it for granted. I didn't really think I needed it. I didn't take it seriously. I was intimidated. So I was like, but I see now how it aids your writing in so many ways. And so that's what I would want to use it for mostly. So just a little bit of piano, but nothing else.
So my final question to you is probably one I should have started with in hindsight. But before we end the conversation, why jazz?
So it's definitely like it was definitely like a mistake. Not even a mistake. It wasn't. It wasn't planned. I always knew I wanted to sing. I always knew I could sing. And I knew that it was something that I wanted to make into a career. But when I came to varsity, because that was one of the conditions that my parents said, I think that you have this gift, but we want you to have an education so that it's something that you can sort of pursue with confidence. And we really want to see your level of commitment. So get a degree. So I got a degree, but when I initially got to school, like to UCT, there were only 2 options in terms of streams. So it was either you were going to do Western classical, which is what it was called, which is opera, or the other option was jazz. And I was definitely not an opera singer. So I guess, it was a situation like, okay, let me just, and I didn't understand the music at first. It was like very weird for me. I was like, what is this stuff? And then there was scatting, and I was like, this is odd. But I found some artists that I really loved, whose voices really sort of made me feel something. And I think it was like a gradual sort of love affair with the music and what it represented.
So you start discovering this artist only at this point, or did you prior to that were you familiar with artists in the jazz space?
I knew some artists. So like in high school, I was asked to sing in the jazz band, and I say like sing in the jazz band. I literally had like 2 songs. I learned a song a year. So it was over a 2-year period. I think I joined when I was in grade 10. And I would just sing the same song at every assembly, like all the time. And that sort of opened my eyes up to like, oh, Ella Fitzgerald and like Sarah Vaughan. But it wasn't really my thing. I think I loved like soul music. I was like obsessed with D'Angelo. I loved Maxwell. I loved, Jill Scott. So that was my reference that I was into at that time. So a lot of those guys also listened to, there's like elements of jazz music. It's jazzy. So it wasn't difficult to marry the two worlds. I just had not been exposed to traditional jazz or jazz in any way before.
Yes, I'm really glad we got to do this. Now I'm just realizing that I have a lot more I want to know about. I decided to skip the beginning. I have more questions, but it's fine. It's fine. But honestly, I'm really glad we got to do this, and I'm really glad I got to have some questions that I've had in my head for a while now answered. So I'm a fan. And I'm really excited for this second project that you keep on referencing that I don't want to jinx by
guys, please. So, now I'm nervous because now you're going to ask me when. And I'm like,
please do music.
Yeah, I mean, look.
Exactly. I don't want to jinx it. So
no, it'll come when it comes, guys. Please just, good things take time.
No, but we're still enjoying the album, and we're just glad we have it.
No, thank you. Thank you so much for reaching out. I know I haven't been the greatest at communicating, so thank you for being persistent. And I'll wait for that invitation to that venue in Polokwane.
Definitely. As soon as I buy that venue, I'm gonna contact you.
I'll hold you to that.
Thank you so much, Spha.
Cool, man. Enjoy the rest of your evening.